Congratulations to all the speakers.
And thank you very much, Anka, for chairing the session. So it's soon also now my turn to take over the lead, so to say, and to bring you to the last session of today. I'm very happy to chair this session, and I'm very much looking forward to talk with you all about idealistic depictions. And as you can see from the program, we have a dance program in this panel, and I would like to invite that we listen now to the first lecture by Ruth Allen, who is, I think, not with us at the moment, but will be present her talk via pre-recorded lecture. So I ask the organization just to switch in the video so that we can enjoy the image of Medusa, maybe have a second or third look at her, but I think we will not become stone, but will be excited about this lecture.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry not to be joining you live. I'm in fact not at the Michael C. Carlos Museum in Atlanta, but on the west coast of the United States, which has made the time difference difficult. But I'd like to thank Ergun, Alev and Gul for coordinating the conference, and of course to my fellow speakers. So let's begin. An unpublished Roman intaglio in the Michael C. Carlos Museum at Emory University in Atlanta depicts a standing Perseus holding the severed head of Medusa, wisely turning his gaze away from hers, which instead meets our own inquisitive eyes. The iconographic scheme is well attested in Greek and Roman art across a variety of media, from coins to wall paintings, and on a small number of other intaglio and cameo carved gems of the 1st and 2nd centuries CE. This is an image that in all cases manipulates a tension between looking and not looking, between desire and fear, reality and representation, that is fundamental to the Medusa myth and to her widespread deployment in ancient Mediterranean art. Yet I would argue that this frisson is especially pronounced when carved on a gemstone. Throughout the Hellenistic and Roman periods, engraved gems were increasingly viewed and valued as personal ornaments and decorative artworks, and not only as functional tools for sealing. Ancient authors comment frequently on the seduction of gems' precious materials and minute artistry, which could entice viewers into close encounters, prompting them to bring the stone near and rotate it in the light, or to better examine its miniature device, or, in the case of cameo gems, perhaps even to touch. Doing this with the Carlos gem draws our eyes unfailingly to meet Medusa's own, which seemingly look back at us, animated by the flash of reflected light on the stone's polished surface. Enchanted by the wondrous techne of the gem engraver's craft, we might even catch our breath, hold still, and examine slowly, as though in fact turned to stone ourselves, just as Virgil describes Aeneas, spellbound by the artistry of the frieze adorning the Temple of Juno at Carthage. The affective potential, therefore, of the Perseus motif, when viewed on a gem, to body forth an encounter with Medusa in this way, prompts us to question why it was deemed an appropriate device for a ringstone, and what the owner or any viewer of the Carlos intaglio might have thought about when she or he contemplated its decoration. Depictions of Medusa's disembodied head, known as the Gorgoneon and characterized by its frontal gaze and grotesque features, are of course widely deployed in Greek and Roman visual culture. These have been interpreted uniformly as protective apotropeia, designed to turn away harmful forces by, and here I quote Raina Mack, recreating in the form of an image what mythology unfolds in narrative discourse, the power of Medusa's gaze to petrify those who look upon her face. Medusa's severed head also appears on engraved gemstones, in greater number than the Perseus device, and these too have been understood as apotropaic. This interpretation is bolstered by clear evidence for belief in the magical and medicinal properties of precious stones, which were utilized as protective and curative amulets, whose powers, as we know, were located in the particular combination of image, material, and, on occasion, text. So one ancient lapidary claims that when carved into red coral, the Gorgonean was a powerful phylactery, and surviving examples would seem to attest to the perceived efficacy of this combination. The discovery of jet medallions carved with Gorgonea in several graves in Roman Britain also hints at Medusa's potential to be a bodyguard for the deceased on their journey into the afterlife, her capacity to subdue dark underworld forces supercharged by the black colour and electrostatic properties of the medium. That all were found in graves with female skeletons further implies the gendered application of Medusa's magic, an association that is repeated on mummy portraits from Roman Egypt, as seen here on an example from Budapest, wearing Gorgonean amulets on necklaces. This paper does not deny that the Gorgonean could be apotropaic when carved in certain stones or deployed in certain contexts, but rather pushes against the assumption that all representations of Medusa on gems should be thought to function this way. Not only are these objects that invited contemplation from their wearer as well as any viewer, ill-intentioned or not, but many of the Medusa heads seen on gems are neither front-facing nor frightening. Indeed, she most often looks like this, a beautiful young woman, either in profile or in dynamic three-quarter view, the only nod to her mythical monstrosity, a pair of wings nestled in her hair, perhaps snakes tied beneath her chin, and on some occasions an agonized expression. This encourages us to parse Medusa's gem appearances more subtly. And while it is of course true that representations of Medusa become increasingly attractive and less monstrous across all media, from the archaic into the Hellenistic and Roman periods, it is worth noting that Medusa's presence on gems is an overwhelmingly late Hellenistic and Imperial Roman phenomenon. The Gorgonean is rare on extant archaic and classical gemstones, while the profile head type appears first on coins in the late 4th century BCE, and seemingly not on gems until the 1st. If Perseus is depicted on classical gems, he is typically alone. This implies that Medusa's newfound beauty was not a simple consequence of convention or evolving style, but was in fact critical to how and why her image operated on gems in the late Hellenistic and Roman worlds. First recognizing that this Hellenistic heritage helped Roman gems be symbolic of luxuria, this paper therefore argues that Medusa's made-up appearance promoted gem status as items of adornment, pointing to their capacity to civilize and transform the bodies of their wearers, at the same time as engaging gems in a serpentine tangle of contemporary debates concerning luxury, cultus, and the troubling consequences of empire. The Perseus motif seen on the Carlos intaglio finds close parallels in reverse coin type deployed under King Mithridates IV and later replicated under Mithridates VI on a series of municipal issues, as here at Amissos, Pontos. Just as already claimed by the Seleucids, the hero was worshipped as an ancestor of the Mithridatic dynasty at Pontus, helping to establish twin lines of mythological and political descent from Alexander the Great and the Persian kings, both of whom claimed Perseus as ancestor. At the same time, it's not hard to imagine how an image of Perseus' triumph against Medusa could take on additional nuance as a statement of Pontic aggression, especially during Mithridates' 6 campaigns against Rome, allowing the king to be seen as a new Perseus, wielding Medusa's head as a weapon against his enemies. This potential for the image of the hero to be a cipher for Mithridates, or better, to offer an heroic persona for him to try on, is also exploited on engraved gemstones. The well-known amethyst intaglio signed by Apollophanes is carved with a profile of Medusa, the first to be rendered on a gem. Apollophanes has been recognized as the creator of Mithridates' official coin portrait, and perhaps some of his existing intaglio portraits as well, which encourages us to see this gem as a royal commission too. As Demetrius Plantsos points out, a Medusa head commissioned by Mithridates makes excellent sense, not only because of the symbolic resonance of the Perseus myth, already exploited on gems by the Seleucids, but also because Mithridates himself was a renowned gem collector. It is clear from the ancient texts that great care must have gone into the selection of a gem device, and that it might therefore broadcast the wearer's sense of self, or indeed help create a social persona. Whether Apollophanes' gem was worn by Mithridates or given as a gift, this helps us to see how it may truly have allowed Mithridates to pose as the victorious Perseus, manipulating Medusa's severed head and directing her petrifying gaze at his enemies, perhaps even sending it ahead of his person in the form of sealings bearing its imprint. Indeed, Medusa's emotive portrait-like features have been thought to evoke those of the king himself, prompting some to conclude that the gem in fact portrays Mithridates as Medusa. It has been suggested that the gem may have been commissioned by Pompey as a symbol of his victory over Mithridates, although it seems most likely that the intaglio was carved at the Pontic court. Indeed, arguing that Mithridates would never approve a representation of himself as Medusa, Plantsos has suggested that any resemblance between the gem image and the king's portrait is superficial, the simple result of Apollophanes replicating the sensuous style of his coin portrait, but not its subject. This is, however, to read Medusa only as victim and to assume that seeing Mithridates' visage in hers was therefore unwelcome. But when viewed on a gem, Medusa in fact proves a fitting proxy for Mithridates, who was known as a connoisseur of poisons as well as of gemstones, most famously developing a pharmacon administered daily that rendered him immune to poisoning. Arsenic was known to Pliny the Elder as to earlier natural historians in crystal form, and we might wonder if it was curiosity about toxic minerals that in part inspired Mithridates' dual collecting interests. Gems could be used as pharmaca in their own right, worn as amulets to repel scorpions or to neutralize venom, but also ground into powder and mixed with water, honey, or milk to be ingested as medicine for various ailments, as has been suggested for a number of hematite gems, deliberately fractured, as here on the right. We also hear from several sources that Mithridates carried poison capsules concealed in rings, bracelets, and amulets, perhaps hidden beneath their stones. Medusa, of course, threatened poison as well as petrifaction, and we can easily see how her representation on a gem might work as a provocative emblem for Mithridates, proclaiming his command of poison at the same time as working as an amulet to ensure and signal his own bodily invulnerability. Whether or not we believe that Mithridates' portrait was deliberately evoked on Apollophanes' intaglio, the potential to see the king in her features, to bring him into focus as the image shifts on the reflective surface of the stone, only underscores the affective possibilities already inherent in the act of looking at the gem. This is a motif that permits the wearer to be Perseus and Medusa simultaneously, and to claim the powers of both as his own. This elusive yet material association between gems, Medusa, and toxic substances persists at Rome. Indeed, we should not be surprised that Mithridates looms large in Roman discourses against luxuria, where, much like Rome's other great enemy, Cleopatra, he is presented as a doubly corrupting force, defined by both his lavish taste and his talent for poison. Although many Roman commentators describe luxury's creep as a foreign infection working its way through Rome like venom through a body, if we believe Pliny, it was Mithridates' defeat by Pompey and the subsequent plunder and transfer of his gem collection to Rome that ignited a mania for precious stones amongst Roman aristocracy and precipitated Rome's decline into material and moral decadence. Pliny makes clear that Rome's profligate gem-wearing threatened the body politic itself when he claims that some people enclose poison beneath the stones of their rings, wearing them as instruments of death, like another Cleopatra or Mithridates. Several gem engravers working in the second quarter of the 1st century BCE adopted and adapted the profile Medusa type for elite Roman clients, including Sophocles, Pamphilos, and Diodotus, who signed their work. A slightly later intaglio, now known as the Strozzi Medusa, seen on the right, is signed by Solon, who almost certainly worked for Augustus. We might wonder, therefore, if the Romans who wore these gemstones did so to claim some of Mithridates' glamour and prestige for themselves. Unlike Apollophanes' intaglio, however, these Roman Medusas are idealized and impassive, with neatly coiffed hair, modestly downturned gazes, their snakes transformed into loosened curls at the temple and neck. On some examples, Medusa's eyes are heavily lidded or even closed, reminding us that Perseus beheaded her while she was sleeping. There is no risk of petrifaction here, and if we buy that the motif bodied forth an association between Pontus and Medusa, then it is perhaps unsurprising that Apollophanes' gem should be reformed like this for a Roman clientele, and perhaps now is associated with Pompey's triumph. Indeed, we might suggest that Medusa's metamorphosis into a sleeping maiden, now denied her sting, stood for Mithridates' defeat and the triumph of Roman imperialism. But a new emphasis on Medusa's beauty also reminds us that many versions of the myth frame Perseus's assault as rape, positioning her as the object and victim of a scopophilic male gaze, what Victoria Rimmel characterizes as the look of Roman imperialism. In one sense, then, Medusa's beautified appearance on a gem accentuates the desirability of the stone as a precious object. But by analogy, her objectification is also the objectification of her wearer. Not only are they both ornamented, Medusa with coiffed hair, her wearer with decorative gems, but as the wearer thinks about the stone against his or her flesh, the boundary between body and gem also becomes blurred, and the wearer too becomes a covetable artwork. Seen like this, Medusa speaks less of imperial conquest and machismo than of a kind of dressing up that might lead instead to militia amoris, foregrounding gems' capacity to render their wearer more seductive. It's clear from the written sources, however, that Medusa could be a complex signifier of the perils of an attractive appearance, as well as of its pleasures. Apollodorus, who provides the most extensive version of the myth to survive from antiquity, even goes so far as to suggest that Medusa was punished because her beauty rivaled Athena's own. This implies that when displayed on a gemstone, Medusa's refined appearance could be a double-edged sword, warning viewers against the dangers of too much adornment, even as it promoted jewelry's capacity to civilize even Medusa's look. Such contradiction taps into some of Rome's deepest anxieties concerning the ornamented or unnaturally embellished woman. As Yves Dambra notes, it was considered a Roman woman's duty to maintain ideals of beauty, cultivation, and refinement in order to win a husband and bear children. But to go too far risked accusations of licentiousness, immodesty, and adultery. So, for example, the stunning puellae of Latin elegy use their makeup and jewels to gain a visibility that seduces men and endangers social hierarchies as a result. These texts frequently liken women's adorned bodies to luxury goods, including gems, further objectifying the female by highlighting her artificiality, as here in Ovid's Ars Amatoria. Here, woman is synonymous with a series of raw and unpleasant substances that are crude by nature but made elegant by artistry. The implication is that a woman needs work if she is to become civilized, but by working on her physical appearance is contrived. Literature's emphasis on the make in makeup, therefore, renders our Medusa gems dangerously provocative. If we consider adornment, as Ovid proposes, as a tool for rendering women's errant bodies more elegant, then her tamed appearance offers a model of cosmetic refinement to her viewer. She is the before and after of cultus, pointing to gems' capacity to give their wearer greater allure, not only by adding colour and shine to their surface, but by pressing a new, improved look onto their body. This is made tantalizingly literal when we consider that chalk dust, crater, was used to make seals and to whiten women's complexions. Rimmel has demonstrated how Medusa's visage in fact hovers behind many of the faces of elegy's puellae, whose flashing and rapturing looks paralyze their viewers with desire, just as Lucian tells us it was in fact Medusa's beauty that turned those who saw her to stone. Yet her presence in these texts, even when evoked obliquely, exposes both the repugnance and the artificiality of women's ornamented bodies, and hence the destabilizing potential of cultus. In his Amores 114, for example, Ovid's coroner weeps at the sight of her hair, damaged by overdressing, twisted into snake-like ringlets, and doused with poisonous dyes. Elsewhere in Latin literature, as here in Lucan's Pharsalia, Medusa is an icon of contemporary fashion, but one who nevertheless threatens the viewer with her cutting-edge, drop-dead gorgeous look. For a Roman woman to adorn herself was in many ways, therefore, to become Medusa, at once noxious and seductive. It was, of course, also to be viewed as an artifice, reflected in the polished bronze of a mirror, like Medusa in the gleam of Perseus' shield, or carved in intaglio on the translucent surface of a gemstone. Indeed, the introduction of the shield to the mythological narrative of Perseus' encounter with Medusa is crucial to our understanding of her image's function. Although we could already see Medusa's ability to create statues from her viewers as a form of art production, the shield transposes her powers of objectification into Perseus' command of image creation, marking a critical shift from the wild to the domesticated and from nature to culture. Viewed like this, when encountered on a gem, Medusa's ability to look back at her viewer and to transform him or her into an object of the gaze underscores gems' own capacity to turn their wearer into an object d'art, not only to transfix their viewer with a ravishing look, but also to stun them with the wonder of their carefully crafted appearance, just as gems themselves epitomize the work of culture and the transformation of raw matter into artwork. Pushed beyond the individual, Medusa's severed head then becomes an emblem for the cultivating impetus of empire at large, which colonized barbarian lands, processed foreign matter as luxury good, and transformed Rome and her citizens into glittering imagenes. But as Medusa's literary treatment underscores, even her made-up modish look oscillates between harmful and beautiful, between rough stone and noble gem. This, it seems, is part of every woman's allure. Corona's disordered Medusan hair arouses Ovid at Amores 112, while other elegists eschew adornment entirely, preferring a natural look. If cultus civilizes through objectification, Medusa offers a counterpoint, therefore, always threatening, perhaps teasingly, to turn her gaze and unleash her venomous curls. We might argue, therefore, that far from refining her wearer's look, Medusa, like the Maenad, with her streaming unfettered hair, seen here on the right on a glass intaglio from Herculaneum, encourages her wearer to let loose, to rebel, if only in her imagination, against the strict control of dress and deportment that defined social standing in the Roman world. If wearing a gem could be an aspirational act, a means of breaking free of one's place in society and reshaping oneself as someone more prestigious or seductive, then Medusa symbolizes the potential for cultus to be a decivilizing force as well. In this way, the Perseus on the Carlos intaglio turns Medusa's look on its viewer not as an admonition to control one's appearance, nor as a warning against the deception of cultus, but as symbol of liberation. Thank you. And I welcome questions via email and look forward to further discussion.
Ruth, very much from far away, and convey our greetings. And as she has said, if you have any questions or any kind of points you want and wish to discuss, you can email to her or write also to me in the chat, and then we will convey this to her. I'm now very happy to announce the next lecture by Manuela Vitaliti, who will talk about the Herakliskos on Hellenistic gems. And Manuela, please start your presentation.
Il mito di Eracle è ampiamente diffuso nella glittica greco-romana. Esiste una particolare iconografia diffusa soprattutto dall'età ellenistica, l'Eracle bambino che soffoca i serpenti, o anche chiamato Herakliskos. L'episodio, narrato per la prima volta da Pindaro nel V secolo a.C. nella prima Nemea, e più tardi anche da Teocrito di Siracusa nell'Idilio 24, descrive la prima impresa dell'eroe ancora bambino, che strangola dei serpenti inviati da Era per ucciderlo. Si narra che dopo la nascita di Eracle e del fratello gemello Ificle, Era, in preda alla gelosia, mandò 2 feroci serpenti per attaccare i bambini durante il sonno. Nei versi di Pindaro si legge che Alcmena corse in aiuto dei suoi figli, mentre Anfitrione, allertato dai messaggeri e accompagnato dai capi dei Cadmei, si affrettò a giungere sulla scena. Ma non appena arrivarono, scoprirono entrambi che il piccolo Eracle aveva già ucciso i 2 serpenti strangolandoli. Sebbene alcune rappresentazioni rimangano soltanto citazioni nelle fonti letterarie, come una scultura in marmo descritta da Pausania e collocata probabilmente sull'Acropoli di Atene, le prime fonti iconografiche risalgono agli inizi del V secolo a.C. Qui il giovane Eracle è inserito in scene narrative del mito, assieme al fratello gemello, i genitori e a volte anche ad altre figure poste ai lati, come la dea Atena. Su numerosi vasi attici ritroviamo infatti diversi elementi riscontrabili nel racconto di Pindaro e nelle fonti letterarie. Tra gli esempi più noti vi sono lo Stamnos del pittore di Berlino, conservato al Museo del Louvre, l'Idria del pittore di Nausicaa, o ancora il cratere a figure rosse da Perugia, dove il piccolo eroe in piedi sulla crine è posto al centro dell'immagine, insieme ai genitori, al fratello gemello e ad Atena. Di questo schema compositivo rimangono testimonianze anche nella pittura romana, in un famoso affresco di quarto stile nella Casa dei Vetti di Pompei e in un dipinto del pittore Zeusis di Eraclea citato da Plinio. Per la prima volta, intorno alla metà del V secolo a.C., sulle monete tebane e poi su quelle greche di V-IV secolo a.C., di Tebe, Crotone o Taranto, si sviluppa un altro filone iconografico, dove l'Herakliskos è rappresentato da solo nell'atto di strangolare i serpenti. La stessa iconografia la ritroviamo anche su alcuni rilievi in pietra, statuette in bronzo e gemme principalmente in 3 varianti. L'Eracle bambino inginocchiato, l'Eracle bambino seduto in posizione frontale e l'Eracle bambino stante. All'età ellenistica appartengono alcune gemme e camei con il tipo in ginocchio, con alcune differenze. Su un anello in oro con cameo in onice di II secolo a.C., l'Herakliskos è riprodotto come un bambino nudo con entrambe le gambe piegate, un tipo piuttosto frequente soprattutto nelle gemme, che stringe tra le mani i 2 serpenti. Il movimento qui è dato dalla torsione del busto e delle braccia, piegate verso sinistra e verso l'alto. Su una sardonica datata al III secolo a.C., l'eroe bambino è rappresentato invece di prospetto, con una gamba sinistra piegata, poggiata su un cuscino, e l'altra distesa, un tipo più comune attestato soprattutto sulle monete, mentre soffoca i serpenti, tenendone sempre uno per mano. Questa iconografia ritorna anche in alcuni intagli di età augustea, come ad esempio una pasta vitrea blu ovale della metà del II secolo a.C. e nella pittura. Ma mentre nell'affresco che abbiamo già visto della Casa dei Vetti entrambe le braccia di Eracle sono distese verso il basso, su gemme e monete una mano è poggiata a terra mentre l'altra è sollevata, distesa o piegata verso la schiena. La posizione del corpo accentua il movimento della figura e sembra essere anche strettamente collegata alla giovanissima età del bambino e dunque alla volontà degli artisti di riprodurre un'immagine in cui ci fossero sia la fragilità, ovvero l'instabilità di un bambino che non riesce ancora a rimanere saldamente in piedi e che quindi viene rappresentato seduto o in ginocchio, e la forza che da sempre è associata al giovane eroe. Un'immagine ancora diversa è presente su una pietra incisa in pasta vitrea viola, di produzione italica, di III-II secolo a.C., dove Eracle è rivolto verso destra, sempre di prospetto, con le gambe piegate e il braccio disteso. Gli intagli rinvenuti con l'Herakliskos seduto sono molto pochi. Uno tra questi è un'antica pietra incastonata in un anello dorato, dove il bambino è seduto in posizione frontale con le braccia aperte mentre soffoca i serpenti. Un tema particolarmente interessante, oggetto di studi anche recenti, riguarda la funzione assunta da alcune gemme, che potrebbe essere connessa ad una seconda valenza simbolica di questa figura mitica, che da sempre è immagine di forza, della vittoria del bene sul male o dell'ordine sul caos, ovvero la funzione apotropaica. L'Herakliskos potrebbe essere infatti il frutto di una elaborata rielaborazione greca di divinità provenienti dal pantheon egizio e fenicio punico. Esiste infatti una diversa figura di Eracle nota come l'Eracle dattilo, recentemente analizzata da Emiliano Truccas, originaria della tradizione orientale, collegata nelle fonti alla magia curativa e alla protezione personale. Queste proprietà potrebbero dunque essere state associate anche all'Eracle della tradizione greco-romana. L'immagine di un bambino nudo o di un nano che strangola animali pericolosi è infatti frequente nella cultura egizia su gemme e piccoli rilievi che hanno proprio questa valenza apotropaica. Ad esempio, il dio Horus viene raffigurato spesso come un bambino in piedi che strangola dei coccodrilli o, in altri casi, degli scorpioni. Sul retro e sui lati spesso ritroviamo inoltre degli incantesimi scritti in geroglifico riportati per curare o prevenire morsi di animali potenzialmente letali. Questi piccoli amuleti portatili si diffondono dall'età tardodinastica in poi in tutto il bacino del Mediterraneo. Dall'Egitto romano proviene infatti una gemma con l'immagine di Horus bambino raffigurato nudo in piedi con due animali. Sul rovescio possiamo leggere l'iscrizione in greco in cui si chiede a Horus protezione contro gli animali che strisciano. Secondo Susan Woodford, l'iconografia dell'Herakliskos potrebbe derivare da immagini del dio Bes, divinità egizia che spesso è rappresentata con tratti naneschi nell'atto di strozzare due serpenti con le mani. Il tipo dell'Herakliskos stante sulle gemme non compare prima del periodo ellenistico ed è piuttosto raro. Ne possediamo un esempio in questa gemma in corniola di età imperiale, ma potrebbe ispirarsi proprio ad alcune iconografie di Bes, frequente su scarabei fenici di corniola non anteriori al V secolo a.C., o ancora all'immagine del dio fenicio Pataikos, raffigurato in sembianze umane come un nano nudo in piedi con un serpente in ogni mano. L'immagine di Bes, presente su un manufatto prodotto in Egitto, rinvenuto in un contesto funerario cartaginese, mostra caratteristiche molto vicine all'iconografia egizia, essendo nudo e accovacciato in posizione frontale. In ciascuna delle braccia tiene tese un animale per la testa e a testa in giù per la coda, ma in altre rappresentazioni stringe proprio dei serpenti. Questa immagine frontale richiama una rappresentazione dell'Herakliskos su un mosaico di I secolo d.C. rinvenuto a Volubilis, dedicato proprio alle 12 fatiche dell'eroe. Un ultimo esempio, in conclusione, è quello di un altro mosaico, con evidenti somiglianze, analizzate anche da Christopher Faraone, con la gemma in sardonica di III secolo di cui abbiamo parlato prima. L'Herakliskos è raffigurato su un pavimento di II secolo d.C. che decorava il vestibolo di una domus romana ad Antiochia, per il quale Doro Levi riconosceva una funzione apotropaica, poiché gli altri due mosaici presenti sempre nel vestibolo erano stati collocati proprio con l'intento di allontanare il malocchio o proteggere gli abitanti e la casa stessa proprio da eventuali serpenti. Dalla breve analisi di questi manufatti possiamo quindi riconoscere tali proprietà alla figura dell'Herakliskos, attestata anche in età romana. La stessa funzione si potrebbe allora associare anche ad alcune gemme dove è raffigurato, rendendole così dei veri e propri amuleti magici, utili ad allontanare o distruggere animali pericolosi. Una funzione che, come abbiamo visto nei casi presentati, risulta comune proprio alle gemme in cui sono raffigurate quelle divinità orientali delle quali il soggetto sembrerebbe derivato. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much for this rich typology of Herakliskos. And I'm very sure later on there will be a lot of discussion about this. And we directly turn to another type, to Tyche and the representation. And I invite Claudia Tozzi to present her lecture to us.
E il presente contributo ha come oggetto un anello in oro, quello che vedete nell'immagine, con gemma in corniola, che reca incisa la personificazione di Tyche Fortuna, raffigurata secondo il tradizionale schema iconografico. L'anello proviene da un contesto noto, vale a dire da una necropoli di epoca imperiale localizzata a Roma, in tempi recenti, a seguito di indagini archeologiche eseguite dalla Soprintendenza Speciale Archeologia, Belle Arti e Paesaggio di Roma, e attualmente ancora in fase di studio. L'area funeraria, come si può vedere dalla slide, si colloca lungo l'antica via Aurelia, a poca distanza da l'Orium, che è un antico centro noto per la residenza imperiale degli Antonini. La necropoli ha restituito più di 500 sepolture costituite da semplici fosse scavate nel banco tufaceo e provviste in buona parte di una copertura fittile. Le tombe, inquadrabili tra la fine del I e la metà del III secolo d.C., sono per lo più ad inumazione, mentre l'incinerazione è rappresentata da pochissimi casi. L'anello proviene da una tomba ad inumazione, la numero 185, del tipo a cappuccina. All'interno era deposto un individuo di sesso maschile, di età compreso tra i 20 e i 29 anni. La posizione di rinvenimento dell'anello, come si vede dall'immagine, suggerisce che al momento del seppellimento l'inumato lo indossasse nella mano sinistra. Va segnalato che è l'unico esemplare rinvenuto con gemma intagliata, rinvenuto all'interno della necropoli. Per la sepoltura in questione non disponiamo di elementi di corredo datanti. L'unico oggetto che può fornirci un termine post quem è rappresentato da un asse, purtroppo illeggibile sia sul dritto che sul rovescio. Tornando all'anello, si tratta di un anello in oro, realizzato in unica verga a lamina cava, che si allarga nella spalla a formare un castone, definito da questo bordino piatto nel quale è inserita la corniola di forma ellittica, che ha una superficie piana. L'intaglio raffigura l'immagine della Tyche Fortuna, stante, di prospetto con la testa rivolta verso destra. È abbigliata con un lungo chitone a pieghe, a maniche corte, e con una cintura al di sotto del seno. L'imagion invece riveste la parte inferiore del corpo, al di sotto della vita, per poi ricadere dall'avambraccio destro. La Tyche Fortuna regge con la mano destra la cornucopia e con la sinistra abbassata tiene il timone dalla forma cosiddetta ad ombrello. Dal punto di vista stilistico, l'intaglio è stato eseguito in maniera corsiva e semplificata, prestando poca attenzione ai dettagli interni alla figura. Si nota sia nel panneggio realizzato tracciando solo linee parallele che negli attributi, ridotti agli elementi essenziali. I tratti del viso sono soltanto accennati, come anche quelli delle mani e dei piedi. Da notare inoltre che la figura appare sulla gemma invertita nel senso destra-sinistra rispetto alla posizione abituale della divinità sulla monetazione romana. Pertanto è desumibile che l'intaglio fosse in origine utilizzato come sigillo. Come è noto, questo soggetto iconografico è tra i più diffusi nel repertorio glittico e non solo, in particolare tra il secondo e il III secolo d.C., grazie al suo carattere augurale e di buon auspicio della raffigurazione. Gli schemi iconografici presenti sulle gemme romane sono gli stessi che si trovano sui coni monetali. La Tyche Fortuna compare per la prima volta a Roma su monete della fine dell'età repubblicana, per poi diffondersi, a partire dall'età augustea, in tutto il territorio dell'impero. Nella glittica, come nella monetazione, è rappresentata secondo due principali schemi iconografici. Può apparire seduta sul trono, come nel primo caso, nell'esemplare che proviene da Elia Capitolina a Gerusalemme, oppure stante, con chitone altocinto e imagion annodato ai fianchi. Quest'ultima variante, che contraddistingue la corniola che oggi vi presento, è quella maggiormente attestata sia in Occidente che nelle province orientali dell'impero, e nella quale la dea appare accompagnata dalla cornucopia e dal timone. Si tratta degli attributi canonici di Tyche Fortuna, la cui associazione è attestata a partire dalla metà del II secolo d.C. La cornucopia, appoggiata nell'incavo del braccio destro, simboleggia l'abbondanza, mentre il timone, retto nella mano sinistra, allude al governo del mondo e quindi alla capacità della dea di reggere le sorti umane. Numerosi sono gli esemplari, per citarne qualcuno, provengono dalla Dalmazia alcune gemme raffiguranti la chiuche fortuna ritrovati in contesti funerari. Altri provengono dall'antica Gadara in Giordania. Altri esemplari che possiamo menzionare sono quelli conservati nelle collezioni e nei musei. Possiamo citare quello conservato, la corniola conservata al Museo Archeologico di Lisbona, al British Museum e al Museo di Torcello a Venezia, che sotto il profilo iconografico e stilistico sono le più vicine all'esemplare oggi presentato. Un'altra gemma che possiamo menzionare, che proviene da un contesto noto, è quella trovata a Castel Raimondo durante lo scavo della torre romana. Nelle gemme citate fino adesso, la corniola è la pietra più usata, probabilmente per il suo minor costo e la sua facile lavorazione. L'esemplare di Roma si inserisce tra le forme più diffuse in età imperiale, ossia a superficie piana. Considerando quindi lo stile dell'intaglio, il tipo di pietra impiegata e il motivo iconografico, è possibile proporre per questa gemma una datazione compresa tra la metà del secondo e il III secolo d.C. Thank you for your attention.
Yes, thank you very much for this fascinating insight into Tyche or Fortuna and of the East. And I think later on we will also add something to the discussion there. And we jump from Rome, where our two former speakers are located, now to Moscow. And I invite Victoria Chernenko to present her lecture on, a very interesting feature and style, child's head. And I'm very much excited about that.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here. Hello, dear colleagues. So now you could see the title of my lecture. I will speak about special type of cameo and the shape of a child's head in the northern Black Sea region. So as you all know, metal rings with insert like cameos or intaglios are found in the settlements and necropolises of many areas of a nation world. The carved was originally used as a personal seal to mark things and documents. The researchers find a large number of impressions of rings on clay products. At the same time, each image chosen by carver for the gem was closely associated with mythology, which was an important part of ancient man's life. The popularity of products that are considered to be seals is notably reduced by the beginning of the 3rd century BC. The images are repeated and the iconography is simplified. Perhaps this is due to the use of rings by different groups of people. And if in the 5-4 centuries in the northern Black Sea region, rings are mostly made of gold and are found only in rich graves, then later the main metal becomes bronze, and they are present in the composition of very modest sets of inventory. It is believed that since the Hellenistic era, the role of the image on the rings as a talisman is growing. At the same time, cameos were invented. It's obvious that any image on the ring or inset should have a certain symbolism, quite ambiguous and understandable to the owner. About one particular type of cameos and its intended meaning will be discussed in the present work. In 2019, the expedition of the Archaeological Museum Tennis, under the leadership of Sergei Lyashenko, carried out work on the site of the necropolis of the settlement of Tennis, which now is on the Rostov-on-Don region, Russia. There was discovered the barrel 103. This is a period barrel of an adult woman and a teenage girl, made in coffins. In the filling above and below the stone foundation in both coffins and outside them were many items that give a very broad dating, mid-1st till 3rd centuries AD. The bronze fibula pin, which was part of the inventory of the first buried, dates the burial to the end of the first half 3rd century AD. With an adult woman was found a silver ring, which you could see, with a carnelian cameo in the form of a head, and it was among the phalanges of the left hand. We see a young face with rather full cheeks, a small nose, and a large eyes. Hair are pulled back from the face. In our opinion, this may be an image of Cupid Eros or Medus Gorgon. Such cameos in the shape of a head were very popular in antiquity and became inserts not only of rings, but also of other types of jewelry. A large number of cameos are discovered by archaeologists during the research of settlements and necropolises on the territory of the Crimean Peninsula. For example, during the excavation of the Tauric Chersones in 1907, gold pair earrings with a cameo or chalcedony and a pyramid pendant were found in crypt 2265. The cameo depicts the head of the Gorgon Medusa, hairs from back, eyes wide open, thin nose, and full cheeks. Another paired gold earrings without pendants, but also with cameo inserts made of white chalcedony, depicting the head of a gorgon, were found in 1913, also in Chersonesus. Based on the funerary complexes and analogies, the researchers date both sets of jewelry to the 3rd century AD. These items are included in the collection of the State Historical Museum. Analogies to them are also present in the collection of the State Hermitage Museum. Earrings and individual inserts with the relief image of a Gorgon Medusa make up a significant part of the museum's collection of cameos. Some of the items come from the excavation of the necropolises not only Chersonesus, but also from Pantikapaum, the capital of the Bosporan kingdom. It is noteworthy that in these images of the Gorgon, there are no wings and snakes at the face, which are characteristic of its images in other works of art. Traditionally, the images of Gorgon and cameos from the necropolises of the cities of the northern Black Sea region are attributed to the 3rd century AD. It's important to note that all these products are made of sardonyx or chalcedony, while the product from Tanis is made of carnelian. As I already mentioned, in Tanis we could see not Gorgon, but Cupid. The collection of the State Hermitage Museum includes a ring with a cameo in the shape of a child's head from the territory of Eastern Mediterranean. The product was received by the Hermitage in the 19th century and dates from the 1st century BC till 1st century AD. The cameo is made of carnelian and it's close to the image of the cameo of Tanis. Wide open eyes, small mouth and nose, full cheeks, hair combined on the sides to the ears. One of the interesting details is the braid in the place of the patching. Such images of the child in the cameo are interpreted by researchers as portraits of Ptolemy Philadelphus and the images of Eros, and are considered as a means of political propaganda. There are many similar cameos in the collections of museums. Neverov Oleg, in the catalog Antique Cameos in the Hermitage collection, gives about certain products made of carnelian, which date from the 1st century BC till 1st century AD. The author notes that cameos of this form could be portraits of children of Cleopatra VII from marriages with Caesar and Antony, or portraits of young Julius Claudius. Unfortunately, all the Cornelian cameos of Eros came to the Hermitage at different times and from personal collections. But similar inserts are found during the excavation of settlements in the northern Black Sea region. The collection of the Historical Museum includes a gold pendant with a Cornelian cameo in the form of the head of Eros. It was discovered in the crypt 2255 during the excavations of ancient Chersonesus and dates from the 1st till 3rd century. This it is. But also, as you mentioned, not all known products in the shape of the head of Eros are made of carnelian. The golden ring, which is there, of the Hermitage with an insert of yellow transparent glass was discovered in 1899 on the territory of the necropolis of Chersonesus. The insertion of the ring, despite the different material, repeats the iconography of the Cornelian cameos, but dates back to the 2nd century AD. According to Oleg Neverov, at this time, such cameos are already images of the son of Marcus Aurelius, Annus Verus. As mentioned above, all such small inserts in the form of arrows could initially be signs of loyalty and means of propaganda of the Ptolemaic dynasty and then the Roman emperors who inherited the Hellenistic tradition. However, we recall that some of the items from the museum collections come from the territory of Panticapaeum and Chersonesus. And in our opinion, the spread of such products in the northern Black Sea region should not be directly linked to the political and economic context of the turn of the epochs. Most likely, the local population used such gems as amulets, giving them only the meaning that was given to the portraits of Eros and Medusa. In classical and early Hellenistic times, only a limited number of images were used as traditional amulets to ward off evil or disease, including the phallus, the frontal eye, and the head of Medusa. In the first centuries of our era, the number of protective amulets increased, but the images of Medusa and cameos made of onyx or glass, etc., with varying degrees of detail remained popular throughout the ancient world. In the 1st till 3rd centuries AD, images of Medusa and Cupid Eros are among the most popular subject on Roman cameos, and a large number of them have been perceived in all parts of the Roman Empire. The round shape of the head of a Gorgon or Cupid was perfect for rings, pendants, earrings, and other luxury products. It was believed that the image of Gorgon rejects the evil eye, and Eros acted as the personification of love and the memory of death. And if he was depicted in grief. Such small cameos could act as love gifts and symbols of affection. Unfortunately, due to the variety of materials and the rather general iconography, it's very possible to establish the place of manufacture. Summing up, we note that the Cornelian insert from the tenons depicts most likely the head of Eros than Medusa. The features of iconography and the material from which similar items are made in the collections of the Historical Museum and the Hermitage allow us to attribute the cameo to the 1st till 2nd centuries AD. Both images of Eros and Medusa were popular back then, and sometimes they look similar. But as the research showed, Gorgon are found mainly in Sardonyx or Chalcedony and Cupid Eros in Carnelian. As the insert could be a gift to the owner of her amulet or her amulet, or even placed by relatives as a symbol of their love and sorrow. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, Thank you very much, Victoria, for linking your paper with the first one by Ruth with the Gorgoneon and Medusa, and also now linking a second aspect, that of Eros and the young child's head that you attribute to this. And I'm very sure later on there will be a lot of material discussion being present for this paper too. And now we are jumping to Romania, and I invite Anna Hamad and Stefan Georgescu to go back to Hercules, in fact.
İyi akşamlar. I hope that I spell correctly. And for all of you, welcome and good evening, because it's already evening. So I know that you are tired. And today we will resolve a mystery together, a mystery which has more than 100 years. And we will exhuming the past, because you know, dear colleagues, that not all the time you have to excavate in the fields. You have to also excavate in the deposit of the museum and also in the archives and in the old literature to restore the proper story of the artifacts. And I think this is one of the most important tasks for the researcher. We will be restoring the past and give justice to one of the most important items of jewelry from the Romanian collection. We have here the necklace with gold pendant, with gold medallion, with cameos discovered in Drobeta. Today, Drobeta Turnul Severin. And it is held in the National Museum of Romania, as you can see from the pictures. And the most important fact for the beginning is to say some words about the necklace and about the medallion, which you can see it in the lower part of the presentation. So this medallion was found in Drobeta, as I told you, and it is one of the most important examples in Roman goldsmithing, being at the same time a wonderful example of glyptic during the Roman period in Dacia. The body of the necklace is made in the form of a chain made from links, in which they are hanged pendants made of agate, cylindrical and multifaceted beads. On the opposite side of the closing system, which has missing today, we have inserted a disc with a ribbon welded in the middle and knotted. The necklace is completed with a medallion that holds a glass cameo embedded with one of the Hercules works. The frame is worked in the form of a twisted H, found in several artifacts from Viminacium, dated between 2nd and 3rd century AD, but also in Aquincum, in this case being dated in the 3rd century AD. So based on this analogy, the pendant necklace could come from a workshop south of the Danube and dated in the period of 2nd until 3rd century AD. Our glass cameo is not so small. It has like 5 centimeters on 3 centimeters almost, so it's not quite small. It's rendered in a white relief on a black background, the last of the works of the Hercules, the submission and bringing of Cerberus, the subject of numerous representations in Roman art and of a glyptic series, which include also cameo. An important correction remained to be made. The artifacts presented the moment of tying of Cerberus with a rope around his neck to be brought to Eurystheus. The monstrous animal is fighting back, of course. Its heads are in the grip of the noose that the hero has already put on his neck. With his right hand, Hercules tightens the noose whose rope is tense in his hand. The body of the beast is under one of the hero's knees, which keep it lying on the ground. The other knees rest on the ground. The tense body of the hero leans forward over the animal to subdue it. Although it is no longer noticeable on our artifacts, as you can see it, due to the rolling of or maybe of the bad pattern, but on the analogy, you can observe the lion's fur hanging behind Hercules and the cloth is under his feet. Unfortunately, at the moment, the bottom of the cameo is just an amorphous subject that doesn't allow much to be seen.
Anna, there is some problem in the PowerPoint because we see black stripes on the bottom and on the top. So maybe start the PPT anew so we can maybe see everything better.
Let's see.
Yeah, because we couldn't see all the details. There was just a black stripe over the half of the Cameo.
Now it's better.
Now it's better. There are still some stripes, but at least it's a bit better. Yes.
Yes, and we're back again to
Yeah.
Hercules. So, being such a special artifacts, our mystery tonight lies in the way that this artifact, this necklace, has come in the collection of the National Museum of Romania. Since its discovery has become the object of desire for famous collector to finally be purchased by Dr. Gheorghe Severeanu and included in his valuable collection. You can see a picture of Gheorghe Severeanu with his wife. We don't know exactly how the collector came into the possession of this cameo, since it was discovered at the end of the 19th century. But we know that in the area of the modern-day Severin, the entire area has entered since the 19th century in the attention of the collector, given that the work to expand the city brought to light more ruins and ancient artifacts. After Gheorghe Severeanu's death, his wife fulfilled his last wishes and donated, starting from 1939, the valuable collection, which is huge. You can see an image of the Museum Severeanu today, to the museum, to the newly found museum from Bucharest. The mentioned object appear in the general inventory of this museum. Being a very valuable artifact, it was probably brought outside the country to be kept during the war, the Second World War, and therefore was donated after the end of the war when it returned to the country. It's important to mention that in the register from 1949, it appears with the places of discovery in the Park of Roses from Drobeta, information that we know today that it does not comply with the real context and condition of discovery. So this is our mystery today. The confusion over the place of discovery was taken over by Mihail Grammatopol and Maria Bălăceanu, but without having verified the old bibliography regarding this article. It is very important when we have an item of jewelry or any other artifact, doesn't matter, to find out almost everything about this. Because sometimes we think we know all, but it's not true. In fact, the first publication took place not in 1967, so Mihai Grammatopol was published in 1967, but in 1923, where the context of discovery, inventory, and a good photograph of the medallion necklace appeared, which is very important because we didn't know the context of discovery until we found this first publication from 1923. The article appeared in a profile publication, and it is written by Dr. Victor Antonescu, one of the minds with a desire for culture and at the same time with a great political weight. It was also a minister, not a culture, but of economy in Romania. Which is also numismat and passionate about archaeological artifacts. In other words, of course, it was a collector. Certainly, the cameo attracted the attention of his trained eye, and I think that in 1923 it had not entered yet in the collection Severeanu, and it was more than likely on the antique market. This is also one of the plausible explanations for the false, not true information from the register of the museum. In 1967, our necklace was published by Mihai Grammatopol, as I told you. And let's hear and see. This is the publication of Mihai Grammatopol, and after that it was published by Maria Bălăceanu, and more near to us by in the catalog The Gold and the Silver from Romania in 2013 from the National Museum in Bucharest. You can see why these artifacts needs to be restored because the old publication does not have a good quality of the pages. More important, the medallion necklace was transferred in the following period to National Museum of History of Romania, more precisely in 1973, in whose collection is still present today. We are most grateful that information to all of our colleagues from the Museum of Bucharest and also from the National Museum of Romania. So, the real mysteries begin. This is the first publication of the artifacts, as you can see. It has quite good pictures, and the most important, we have the context of discovery, and we have also all the items from the grave, because it was discovered in a grave. So the authors of the later bibliography, such Maria Bălceanu and Doina Benia, take over the location written in register of the museum. This is why they got wrong with the location, namely Parcul Rozelor, or Park of Roses. However, the first sources mention number 147 on Calea Traian, a street located higher than this park. So it must be another necropolis of the city, we will see. The real mysteries come from the mention of the registers from the museum. We do not know how it was noted and why Victor Antonescu mentioned in detail another burial place. We assume that he sold the jewelry on the antique market and probably had access to information that was already lost when the jewelry entered in the Severano collection. So the real story of discovery, it is told in 1923. And we know that it was found in the tomb. And we know that alongside the skeleton, the remains of the skeleton, there are several other items. Unfortunately, all the inventory is lost today. We don't have, we have only this necklace. We know that in the tomb was discovered a set of funerary jewelry, and the set was completed by two gold bracelets, a coral tiara, which were unfortunately lost. And of course, we have also coins. One of the coins is the bronze from Gordian III with the legend Gordianus Pius Felix Augustus. And on the reverse, it has Provincia Mercia Superior Colonia Viminacium. The second coin, it is a coin from issued in Nicaea, which is very important information. This coin also had, the second coin has also a small hanger being transformed into a medallion. So this is the real context mentioned in 1923 of the discovery. And it's very important because two things. We know that it was probably female. We know that he came from a grave. We know where to put on the map of Drobeta this discovery. So they are very important information. As you can see on this slide, you have the situation of Drobeta. You see it's situated in the now southwest Romania on the Danube. Today the city is called Drobeta Turnul Severin. And you can see the plan from 1893, which is very appropriate, 1896. It is very important to know that the same number of house from 1896, it's the same in the city today. So it's the same. They are not different numbers. In Drobeta, they remain with the same numbers of the houses. And more important, you can see below the map below. On your right, you have the Roman fort. On the upper part, you have Strada Traian, Trajan Street. And on the lower part, on your left hand, you have Roses Park, Park Rozelor. So we know that there are different places, and we know today when and how and where this discovery was made. So today we have to talk also about the information coming from typological and chronological classification.
Yes, Anna,
and we know
but you have only 2 or 3 minutes left, so you must hurry up a bit.
So we know that this scene is presented on many objects, as you can see, but also in Dacia is very rare. And the type of this representation, it's not seen in Dacia. On glyptics, we have not so many examples. I counted 10 examples. You can see here most of the most important example. Of course, the cameos coming from Berlin, also the cameos coming from Hermitage Museum. And on your right corner, you can see another example coming also from Dacia, from Ulpia Traiana, which is very important because in the top, if you want, of this representation, Britannia is leading. They have 3 cameos with this scene, and Dacia is after her because we have only 2 in Drobeta and in Ulpia Traiana. The motivation to represent this type, of course, is related with the struggle of between Hercules and Cerberus, and of course, in concrete terms, the struggle between life and death. So it should be appropriate to put some items with this kind of representation in a grave. Yes, because Hercules is a great hero. It is a demigod, and he, of course, overpowered death. So it is very important, if you have a loved one, to assure her or him that in the next life he will be victorious like Hercules over the death. The death is only a beginning. Yes. And in conclusion, as can we see, we have not quite so many analogies. We have only 10 analogies. I will be grateful to you if you can signalize any other gems or cameos with this kind of representation. And between these analogies, we have also star analogies like the cameos from Berlin, which is signed by Dioscurides, and it was discovered in Roma and mentioned also by Benvenuto Cellini. But unlike the Maria Bălăceanu, who published the necklace as a Christian jewelry, I don't think it was a Christian jewelry. I think it was quite a pagan one. And more important, because of the 2 coins, we have also we can also date this discovery between 239 and 244 during the reign of Gordian III, and mostly or late during the reign of Philip the Arab. The inventory of the tomb is very important. We know because of that, as I told you, that it was a female. We know the entire inventory. And most important, as you can see it here, we have the map of ancient Drobeta, which is overlaps by today Drobeta Turnul Severin. And you can see our discovery marked with the red dots. And we know about this discovery that it lies not in the necropolis from Parcurosor, which is below our red dot. And we presume that in the 3rd century, when the female was buried there, Drobeta has on the western part necropolis. So on the western part, the necropolis from Parcurosor goes also until the northern part for sure. So this is a very important detail about this early modern mystery, because we created the mystery when the artifacts not entering the museum in 1896. Thank you for your attention.
Yes, thank you very much, showing us how important it is to look also into these older publications and then to discover and reveal some of the mysteries we nowadays still have in our hands.
Mysteries at the museum.
Or in the museums, yes, of course. Yeah, we have one more lecture. I think this lecture is pre-recorded, but I saw that Gabriela Philipp is nevertheless here with us.
Yes,
Gabriela,
hello.
do you want to say something before your lecture, or please go ahead?
Hello, good evening, everyone from South Romania. A unique representation on a Roman gemstone from Romula, one of the most interesting Roman archaeological sites in south of Romania is Romula, the capital of former province Dacia Inferior. Romula is highlighted by the variety of Roman monuments and buildings discovered here. Also, the amount of archaeological material found here is impressive. Here you can see the position of Romula on the map of Dacia Inferior. On this slide, you can see the location of Romula on the so-called Limes Salutanus, a very important position on the southwestern border of Roman Dacia. Now, the only sketch plan of this city was drawn by Professor Dumitru Tudor. One can distinguish the extent and the pentagonal shape of the city, as well as the three fortifications built in Roman times, which can be seen here in red color. Of these three forts represented here by Professor Dumitru Tudor, only one was identified in the field. Nowadays, the ruins of the city are difficult to visualize due to the fact that the perimeter of Romula was overlaid by the modern village Reșca. Over time, several hundreds of Roman gemstones have been discovered here. Based on this number, but also on the fact that some of them were broken, therefore representing scrap, Professor Dumitru Tudor issued the theory of the existence of a gemstone production and engraving workshop in Romula. The total number of gemstones which certainly come from Romula cannot be estimated today. So far, I have personally processed informations about over 200 such pieces. These considerations largely depend on the published archaeological informations, but also on my access to recent unpublished discoveries of this kind, or of course, various private collections. I don't know why the next slide is not, okay. The iconography of the gemstones is extremely diverse. The imaging of the Roman pantheon, traditional and later enhanced with Oriental deities, represents the majority of the treated subjects. There is a frequency of various deities with military characteristics, like Minerva, Jupiter, or Mars, and of course secondary deities like Fortune, who enjoyed great popularity among those who were such gemstones. Mercurius, Victoria, Salus, Aesculapius, Ceres, and Diana, or infernal deity like Thanatos, not missing the oriental ones represented here by Sol, or Serapis and Isis. Hunting scenes, wild animals, fantastic animals, birds, grotesque creatures, various representations of objects or symbols, human characters or imperial portraits, gemstones with agnostic meaning or with different inscriptions engraved on them. Now, in conclusion, the diverse amount of engraved subjects emphasize the diversity of preferences, tastes, and beliefs of those who lived in Romula. Now, returning to the subject of this presentation, I would like to bring to your attention a gemstone that comes from Romula and which differs from the rest of the pieces of this kind discovered here. It is about a piece that was discovered by chance in 1951 by a resident of Reșca, formerly Romula, and which, being unknown to us until today, has remained unpublished. This piece has an oval shape and was made of green jasper. By engraving in depth and sanding, both sides of the gemstone, which differ in size, were engraved with images as follows. On the larger side, you can see the image of Rome seated to the left, holding victory and scepter. The iconographic variant is very well known and all the details are respected here. Rome wears a helmet on her head and at her feet, supported by the throne, the shield. In her left hand, she holds the scepter, and with her right arm stretched forward, she holds a small Victoria on a globe. Above the head of Rome and under her feet, you can see the text Roma Eterna. On the other side of the gemstone was engraved the image of an ibis, rendered standing to the left and wearing a nimbus with 6 rays, maybe 7 if the 7th one is under the beak of the bird. The engraving manner is clean, clear, and extremely detailed. The relationship between this representation of ibis and the province of Egypt is obvious, as I will show later. In search of similar representation, I found out about the existence of other representation of Rome on gemstones from Tyche, but without a legend Roma Eterna. Then I found this aureus issued by Emperor Hadrianus in 136. The text Roma Eterna is just like the one on our gemstone, but of course arranged laterally. Otherwise, all other elements of the image are exactly the same. The text with the type of Rome seated supporting Victoria usually appears on coins of Hadrianus, under whom Rome was called Eternal, on account of many things restored and the various edifices constructed by him. As for the representation of the ibis bird, we also find it on a coin from Hadrianus. From this point of view, the influence of monetary signs on glyptic motifs is very obvious. On the reverse of the coin, there is Egypt, the personified province, depicted standing on the ground supported by a large basket, and in front of the province Egypt, you can see a standing ibis. Now, the presence of the ibis bird may link this gemstone to an Egyptian god, Thoth, who among many other attributes was also the representative of the sun god Re. The possibility that this image indicates a magical meaning should not be excluded if we think about the representation of the 6-ray nimbus. In the absence of a known archaeological context and considering the similarities between this representation and those on the coins, but also the manner of the engraving method, the piece could be dated during the journey of Emperor Hadrianus to Egypt in the first half of the 2nd century, without completely excluding the possibility of a wider chronological framing between 2nd and 3rd century AD. Rome called eternal on account of the ancient opinion of Romans that their city would be eternal, in contrast to an Egyptian ibis wearing the sun symbol on his head, a sun that was regarded through Egyptian religion as eternal. These two images ensure this gemstone from Romula a special place among pieces of this kind discovered here. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gabriela, for showing us eternal Rome in this very special depiction and combination with ibis. And now I invite everyone to contribute to the discussion. So you can virtually raise your hand, but of course you can also write a question into the chat. And who's going ahead with the first question? So I have a question to Gabriela with regards to Roma Eterna. You pointed out the connections to coinage and several iconographies. Can you say a bit more about the legend, the inscription? Because it's written in the nominative, Roma Eterna, and also the placement of this might be interesting to compare with other occurrences of Roma Eterna. Did you consider this and studied this a bit further?
Thank you very much for the question. It's a very good one because, as I said in my presentation, I haven't found anything like this in Dacia. I mean, not with the legend Roma Eterna.
Yeah.
And of course, on coins, you can see two Roma Eterna, Roma Eterne. So, of course, it is a little bit different, and without a very good, a very certain archaeological context, we can't say that it comes from Romula, only on the fact that it was discovered there.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe it came from the south of the Danube, because I have no good analogies from it in Romania, in Romania.
Oh, thank you very much.
I beg your pardon. I would.
Yes, please, Radu.
May I?
Yes, please do so.
Thank you. It's always about the paper of Mrs. Gabriela Philipp.
Yes.
But I highly appreciate her contribution. But in this frame, I would suggest a further direction for investigation. I don't know. Well, I didn't meet until now such representations in the time of the Principate because I didn't seek specially for them. But in the later times, in the 4th century, an image of a bird, of an aquatic bird, wearing the rays of the sun on the head, is rather common in the later Roman numismatics, and it's an image representing the bird of phoenix, so the rebirth. It is connected with the Feliciorum Temporum Reparatio and the restoration of the Roman state under the Constantinian dynasty. I would suggest to Mrs. Philipp to have a glimpse in this direction. Maybe she could find not only analogies, but a moment when Roma Eterna and the image of the ibis occur together, or more or less in the same frame, the same lapse of time, on later Roman coins, and it is easy to verify in the well-known volumes Roman imperial coinage. It could offer a further suggestion for datation, and who knows, maybe if this direction doesn't work, won't offer anything, one can seek always in the same monetary collection for images related to this representation in earlier times, maybe in the 3rd century.
Thank you very much, Professor. It's a very good suggestion. I will see to it. Thank you.
Good luck.
Yes.
Thank you.
Also, I think if you just search also in coin archives, also you already find a lot of depictions with the ibis and so. But yeah, it's always a question how to link it. And I think it's a very good suggestion. Also, look at the use of Roma Eterna throughout the 2nd and 3rd century, 4th century AD. So who's going to ask the next question? We had such rich presentations also regarding Herakles and different depictions of Herakles, but also of Gorgonea and Medusa.
Not a question.
Yeah, please.
Sorry. Yes. Not a question, but for Anna, I just send you a picture with, you see it, yes? Receive it. Yes? Okay, great.
Yeah, but maybe you can evolve on this because I think it's interesting for all of us. We can maybe share it.
Only this picture with Hercules and Cerber.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe for Anna it will be interesting because it's from Scythian burial.
Thank you very much. It is important to mention that this type of the 12th Labor of Hercules has many subtypes. You can see Hercules only tying Cerberus. You can see it dragging Cerberus. You can see Hercules standing with Cerberus at his feet, maybe alone or maybe with someone, we don't know. So there are many subtypes. So it's very important to find the exact subtypes of these cameos from Probeta. So for me, it's very important to find all the cameos, or also all the gems bearing this special representation. And it would be great to have context, but as you can see it from my presentation, most of them, they don't have context. They are in a bigger museum and they are like very special artifacts, but with no context. Unfortunately, we know much about them from Renaissance time or from modern time, but not their context, unfortunately. So thank you very much, Victoria. It will be a great help for me.
I would have a question as well.
Please.
To Mrs. Hamad. The structure of the necklace can offer some elements of datation, some analogies. Could you find something in order to date more precisely this specific way of constructing a necklace?
Yes, the most important, one of the most important things for our items is the chronological frame. So it is important to use to be more accurate in this chronological frame all the elements. So one of the element is also the structure of the necklace. So the structure of the necklace, it's similar with the necklace from, I don't know, the second part of the 2nd century until, I don't know, in the middle of the 3rd century. So it is not very precise. But when you add the context, when you add also the coins, so then you are more precise with that. So you know that the female probably died, I don't know, in the time of the Gordian, the 3rd reign, or probably 1st year of the Philip, the Arabs' reign, something like that.
Thank you. It is obvious that this necklace, if one can date such type of necklaces in the 2nd century AD, in our case, it was used and buried much later. The Gildan coin of Nicaea, a bronze coin which is gilded later, indicates obviously a later moment of the burial.
Of course. But we know that such expensive necklace, because it is very expensive, it is from gold and it has precious stones like agate and of course this cameo, which even it is from glass, it's quite exclusive piece of jewelry, are in the family's treasure for many years. So it could be possible to be brought, I don't know, in the 2nd century, at the end of the 2nd century, and it goes on in the same family. And when the person, one of the person from the family dies, it could be put in the grave. But we have to be very careful because we have some laws. And we know that if the object doesn't belong to the dead, you cannot put it in the grave. It's very important.
I see the point.
Thank you. We also hear about the cases when you can cut, I don't know, a part of jewelry if the jewelry doesn't belong to the dead. So it's important to hear and to know about this specific law regarding the funeral rites.
Yeah, thank you very much for this explanation. I have a question to Claudia Tozzi, because I saw in the presentation of Gabriela also depictions of Fortuna or Tyche. And so my question is a bit about, how would you name it? So would you name the things coming from the East as Tyche, but we also have very different traditions of Tyche depictions in the East. Or would you really call it Fortuna? That's just a question out of curiosity.
Can you repeat the last, please?
Yes, no, so I saw in the presentation of Gabriela also some very similar depictions.
Yes, it's very similar.
Fortuna. Yes, and so my question is, if you see such depictions coming from the Eastern Mediterranean, would you call it Fortuna and show then more this Roman influence, or would you call it Tyche, so pointing to the, let's say, Hellenistic background?
Influenced, but the oriental part of the empire, but there are another lot pictures in the Roman. There aren't in this moment, I don't know, and but is influenced by Hellenistic figure.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there further questions?
Yeah, I have
Please,
a question.
Carolina.
May I? Yeah, I wanted to ask Anna,
Yes.
the difference between the cameo and the setting is obvious. And I wanted to stress that the cameo has a very shallow relief. It's not a plastic, and therefore I would date it in the 1st century. And the setting is really, as you said, much, much later.
It is possible, thank you, because we know that this type of representation stretch until the 1st century BC, until much, much later. And it is a very successful glyptic type because it was used more years after the Roman.
You really should stress that the relief is so flat.
Yes, yes, of course,
or
of
the
course.
Augustan or a little bit later.
I think I said something like this because it is a very bad condition.
I think it was very interesting to see that these early cameos stay so many years in.
They are treasured.
Yeah, and then they are set in gold. And that's a complete other thing.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's of course also very interesting from the legal point of view. If we come back to the morning session, how these things are further used and processed in artisanry. And are there further questions from the audience? Yes, please. So.
For Anna, it is a curiosity, a minor curiosity. You mentioned a coral tiara found in the same coffin together with the other jewelry. Have you any idea of this lost jewel? Because in this moment I am obsessed by jewels for the head, which are very rare, which never appear in official portraiture, but do exist. So they are puzzling. So in case you have the idea that the coral tiara is one of them, please tell me everything about it.
Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, we have to pray to Hercules that this coral tiara appears somehow in the next years, or maybe in the next 100 years. We don't know how coral tiara was lost.
There is no description.
No.
It is
only that it's
I beg
from
your
coral.
pardon.
Please.
I beg your pardon. In this respect, could we see somewhere a coral tiara of the Roman time? Was it any time found such a piece by the archaeologists? Do we have any analogy to judge what it could have been?
I or Anna?
Yeah, please.
No, no, for coral, yes. For coral, I have no analogies. Coral is very difficult to be found in burials. But I recently published a puzzling jewel from Colonna is in Rome. It was thought to be a necklace with made of Herculean knots, and on the center of every Herculean knot there was or a sapphire preserved or a pearl not preserved. And I couldn't understand at the very first what kind of jewel it was, because it was too short for the neck, but finally I found the right comparisons. It is jewel for the head. Imagine not exactly squall style on the forehead, but here combined with headdresses of mid-2nd century. And these kind of jewels never appear in official portraiture of princesses or members of the imperial house, but other similar jewels appears here and there. For instance, the closest comparison comes from Mtskheta in Georgia. So it is something which was en vogue, but we don't really know yet very well. So this is why I was so interested in your coral tiara. It was very promising.
Yes, unfortunately it is lost, but I want to add that I'm very trusting in Victor Antonescu, because it was he was a collector and he has appetite for details, and I think it is a coral tiara if he said so. So
I do hope that it will reappear sooner or later.
Yeah, probably they sold it when they found the tomb. They sold it piece by piece, so that's why I sold. And
there's some information also in the chat about a possible reference, so you can have a look to there by Martin Hennig. So if you are interested about such kind of depictions, yes.
Yeah.
Are there further questions or remarks?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes, please. Martin.
I've just written that there is a cameo showing Antonio Mino in Florence, published, and another one which is set in a medieval cross, 14th century cross in Prague, and both of these will be published or republished in this year's Journal of the British Archaeological Association, which should be out at the end of the year.
Thanks very much for this reference. I think then we are all looking forward to this republication.
Thank you.
Are there further remarks or questions? I do not see any at the moment. So I thank all the speakers of this panel, and of course all the discussants for the rich contributions we have seen to this panel, but also throughout the whole day. And I think maybe there are some further remarks from the organizers for tomorrow. Agün, is there something more? If this is not the case, I would, thank you very much for the whole day, and let you go into a smooth and sound evening.